science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public, everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
The Chloe Sanctuary hopes to give you insight into the health and happiness of your companion parrots. We hope to help you build happy homes using reliable and proven tools. The best homes are built on a rock-solid foundation. And the best foundation for a happy home is the bedrock of science. When we stand on the shoulders of giants, the scientists who have worked long and diligently to understand our companions, we can reach new heights of understanding. And understanding is the key to success.
I think treated, most of these birds have a good prognosis, and I would say
What does avian veterinary medicine have to tell us about our feathered friends? How can the tools of behavior shaping make our homes happier for us and our companions? How can we deal with biting, screaming, or other misbehavior? What is it like to live among parrots? Let them roam around about you and share a life with them. The Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a nonprofit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.
Hi, and welcome to Cockatude, Cockatoos with Attitude. Episode 81, Adding a Companion to the Flock. What do you think about that? She goes, no more companions. We have enough companions. That sounds like a peach, doesn't it? Yeah. And today we have with us Peaches and Baba Lou, Lorelei and Coco, and the Pippa, Sugarbird, hey Sugarbird, and Manda the great salamander bird, who's in love with the violet, aren't you, boy? Aren't you? Aren't you? What are you vibrating for? I feel like a washing machine on spin cycle. What's going on, kid? They've all been out in the aviary today, so they may be a little worn out. It's hard to say. Peach is a little fired up, so. Right, Pip? Right, Pippa? Yeah, adding a new bird to your flock, that's something it's kind of a complex subject. We're going to try to cover it as best we can. You might find reviewing a few of our videos helpful. The training videos that we have, if you look at our playlists, we have a playlist that's all training videos. The most important of those is the one on labels. It's called A Label Addict Goes on a 12 Parrot Program. You went back down there? All right. Okay. We don't want you eating this, okay? And I know how you are, so I'm going to put it over there. And we'll get into why that particular video is the most important of all of the videos in our training section. Because without that key, it's hard to open the door. Okay? And knowing how to shape behavior isn't just helpful. It can be the difference between success and dismal failure. Believe me, when I started out, I realized that I didn't have the tools to do what I was trying to do, and I only had Chloe. And so I took Dr. Friedman's course, her professional course at Applied Behavior Analysis, specifically targeting parrots. And it was the best thing I ever did, because it gave me a completely different perspective. And I stopped looking at a bird as something that my mind creates an image of what it is. I won't do that. And I began to look at the way to deal with behavior in a totally different way. Before you go and decide to bring in a bird into your flock, I suggest that you read my article, Helping the Suffering. You can find it out on our website. It's on Facebook too, on our Facebook page. On the right-hand side of the page, you'll see the article there. It's a good perspective to have because you're going to make a commitment to an animal that could live 80 years or longer. And when I say commitment, I mean you need to make a commitment. You need to make a commitment that you're going to stick with it, no matter what. And sometimes that's hard to do. So if they start screaming, or if you run into a problem with biting, or the new bird isn't getting along with your other birds, you have to have as much of a commitment to the new bird as you do to your older birds, okay? What are you guys doing down there? Don't get her overstimulated, Bob, please. But before you two are mating season, it's enough to drive you crazy. This is the real washing machine on Spin Cycle. You take her into the aviary and she's just and so next week I believe I'm going to take her in for a Deslorelin implant, and what that will do is that will basically shut down her mating response for about 6 months. The reason I've hesitated so far is we're halfway through the mating cycle, and it seems like a little late to do this, but she is so stressed by it that it's worth it to get a few months of relief for her. So, and the other hesitation, of course, is anytime you insert something into the body, even though it's like putting in a microchip. I mean, basically they just shove it in there. There's a chance for infection. There's also a small chance, but there is a chance the bird will try to dig it out and then get an infection. So an infection can lead to death, and it commonly does with birds that have feather destructive behavior. The normal pattern is for them to start ripping their feathers, then they start digging into their skin, and then they mutilate themselves, and then they die from infection. That's the way it usually works. And that's the long haul. If you've got a bird that's got feather destructive behavior, feather picking, they're probably going to kill themselves in time. And when I say probably, you're probably talking a 95% over the long haul within 10 to 20 years. What I'm going to do is start with examples, and then we'll get to the nuts and bolts of how to deal with a successful rehoming, bringing a bird into your flock. So starting with Pippa, Pip. The first thing, you have to get them all their medical. Well, she was about 5 hours north of us, and we had a vet up there do all the preliminary, check for all the big diseases, the cytosine beak and feather disease and psittacosis and the whole list. And we have a video on that too that discusses all the diseases that they can get that are communicable. The one on feather picking is 14. I can't remember the one on disease. It's 15 or 16. I don't remember, but it's easy to find because it's in the section in the playlist under Dr. Jenkins. So the first thing, of course, is to get the medical done. So we got her medical done, and she came up with one titer of chlamydia. Doesn't mean she has chlamydia. What that means is that she's been exposed to it. So then we had to wait 3 weeks and have her retested, and if the level is exactly the same, then she doesn't have chlamydia. So she didn't show any of the other possibilities. Of course, there's always the chance for PDD. That disease is going around like crazy right now, and we don't have a good test for it. We can show the potential for it, but 4 out of 5 birds show that potential. It's a born virus, and there's like 6 different ones that could possibly be the precursor of it. So that test is basically worthless. What you look for then is in the x-rays to make sure none of the organs are enlarged, that kind of thing. And that would be more advanced on the disease, but nonetheless, that's one way to check. So we got all that done. We got the preliminary information on her, what her behavior was. We found out that she had lead poisoning, and they had to actually surgically remove it. And that's where you know there's really been metal poisoning, is when you actually have to remove something. Most people who think their birds have been affected by metal because it was on their cage, that kind of thing, and 9 times out of 10 that just isn't the case. But so we knew she'd have some behavioral issues right from the start. She has, and so you want to talk to whoever you're getting the bird, whatever rescue you're getting the bird from. You want to talk to them about whatever unusual behaviors. Like with her, she tends to clamp on and not let go. It's not as bad now as it was. She had feather destructive behavior. And she hadn't been around a lot of other birds, as in none, okay? So I knew from the start it was going to be difficult to get her to work around other birds. The odds are that she would have trouble fitting in. There would be issues. You're not going to eat that. You just love to do that, don't you, sweetheart? So what I did is brought her in. She has her night cage and her day cage. She has a brand new night cage and she loves it. Her day cage is a little bigger. It's an older cage, but she likes it. It's bigger. And the first thing I started to do was, believe it or not, I put her in a room with a bunch of other birds. Okay, but I had her close to me. And I watched her reaction to each bird.
Peaches is an amazing personality. Her daily maintenance requires dedication and mindfulness. She requires 2 forms of medicine, 7-course meals, and effort to entice her to eat. Extensive preening every day, special tools to trim nails, constant attention to her vocalizations, daily walks, and twice yearly checkups due to the possibility of impacted feather follicles and the nature of her spinal injuries. It seems a common misconception among the general public that parrots are like toys in a toy box. Nothing could be further from the truth. They are complex creatures. Recently, scientific studies have shown them to be at least as intelligent as chimpanzees. Every captive parrot needs special humans who will dedicate themselves to understanding them, those who know their species as it lives in the wild. Special people that understand their social, mental, and physical needs. They need to be understood for what they are, and not as merely human companions, as circus performers to bring smiles. Peaches needs all this and more. She is our special girl. Will you help us care for Peaches? Please make a donation today at our website, chloesanctuary.org. That's spelled CHLOESANCTUARY.org. As a special thank you for your donation, we will joyfully send you a postcard with Peach's happy face.
And if a bird got about that far from her, she would lunge. Okay? You see, that's not happening now. Okay? She tended to, if not watched closely, she tended to rush after other birds and lunge at them. She never actually tried to hurt anybody, but she would try to force them away, as if she was trying to establish a territory. So what I did was, every time that she would do that, I'd pull her away, and I would make it clear that that's a behavior that I don't like, which I'd say no. I tell her not to do something. And I just kept putting her in situations. Then I started putting her one-on-one with other birds, and until I found a bird that she could get close to and there wasn't an issue, like this one here. Like that one there, the Lorelei, right? So, hi Lorelei. And then eventually, and we're talking over time, with these little spats and this lunging and all these other things that most people would get quite frightened by. You know, you're afraid that this bird you've had, I've had her since she was a baby, okay? So this bird that you've had as a baby is being lunged at by this new bird. Well, a lot of people are going to go, oh, I got to protect my bird. They're both part of your flock, okay? So you can't put one over the other. And honestly, in those cases, the one you have to worry about is the new bird, because there's a better chance that the bird who's been in the flock for a while is going to get scared, not knowing what the new bird's going to do, and might hurt the new bird. So you really need to concentrate to make sure both birds are protected. So I did that, and then I stopped trying to eat my pocket bob. And so in time, she got to where she wasn't lunging. She could sit next to a bird. Now, it started with Lorelei, and I worked it out to where she could get close to Peaches, and then she got close to Coco, and then she got close to Sugar, and that kind of thing worked it till every bird in the flock could get close to her. The only bird she still has a little issue with is Bob, and that's because they're the same species, and Bob tries to get a little bit too friendly, and she doesn't want anything to do with that. You could say she's a little touched. She's a great bird, but she's a little touched, aren't you, girl? Aren't you? Yeah, just a little touched. Now, while you're doing that, you're also having to work with what she eats. Now, you'll have people tell you what she's going to eat, but you also have to work them into the food that you're providing. If you're providing the best possible food for your birds, you want her to eat the same thing. So it took a while. She liked a lot of things like bananas and apples, and she liked to eat a lot of fruit. Well, a little bit of fruit's good. A lot of fruit isn't necessarily good. So she would get a little fruit, put on top of her mash, and then once she discovered the muffins that I make, which are basically coconut, almond, with different flavorings in them and stuff, and pellets in them, she loves that. Now the pellets are, what I do is I blend them up and mix it in. So what she tasted was the coconut and the almond, and that tasted really good, didn't it, little girl? And there's also peanut butter powder that you can buy today. I put that in there so they have a peanut butter flavor too. But about a third of the muffin is actually pellets. They're going to lose a little nutrition in the oven. Whenever you heat something up, you're going to reduce some of the nutrition. But uh-oh, you're vibrating now. And I'm just petting your head. Jeez. So with her, the biggest issue was getting her to stop lunging and stop being defensive with other birds around. And it took a while. You're talking like 6 months of work to get her where she can be this close in an environment with other birds. And if you look back on our videos, you'll see that. You'll see the attacks, the lunging, and all that stuff. You'll see it. And yes, you have to be careful. Yes, you want to protect the birds, but you also have to be there and allow these things to happen to some degree. You got to have the confidence that you can throw your arm between the situation and stop it. I think in one video, they were lunging behind my head. That was kind of funny because I didn't see it. I couldn't see it. I'm looking at the camera, and Pippa and I forget what other bird, but no, I think it was Lucy. Lucy wouldn't come in today. She's tired from being in the aviary, and she wouldn't come in. And I give them a choice on that. If they really don't want to come out of their cage, knowing what I'm going to do, because they can tell that I'm going to do this, I'll leave them. But
I'd like to do a big shout out to those people who make this video cast possible. Cockatude would not be possible without our patrons. Thank you to those of you who make one-time donations. Without these patrons giving us of their hard-earned cash, we couldn't continue doing this podcast. I'd like to urge you to please give us at least $1 per episode. We do 2 episodes a month. We'd like to do more, but in order to do that, we have to have the time. And right now I'm spending a lot of time trying to beat the bushes for the Chloe Sanctuary. It's not easy taking care of birds that are severely damaged, both emotionally and physically. So, please, I urge you, become one of our patrons. And I'm sure that Peaches would thank all of our patrons in person if she got the chance.
So, with Pippa, the biggest issue was to stop the lunging. And it took time, and getting her close to birds, and being ready to throw my hand in there. And if I get bit, which, funny with her, I never did. She never actually bit me. But I got nipped a couple of times by birds trying to protect me. That's normal. Because if a bird's protecting you, it will nip. That's what they do in the wild. And of course, when they do it in the wild, they're nipping feathers, so nobody gets... Excellent! What's a great rouse over there? Meander, meander, salamander. You do the best rouse. You really do. Yep. Now, take Snowball. Now, so when Snowball came in and I had to blend him into the flock, his major issue was he didn't want to even come near me or anybody. He would hold on for dear life on his perch, and that would be that. So I couldn't even socialize him with other birds in the beginning. And what I did was slowly work it so that he loves peanut butter. So what I would do is put a little bit of peanut butter on the end of a craft stick and hold it out for him and put my hand there. And when he would take his foot, I didn't make him get off the cage, but when he took his foot and released it and put it on my finger, then I'd give him the peanut butter. And after a while, he got off the cage. And then I got him and introduced him one by one to each of the birds and watched the reactions. And now you want to do that. Now there's a key too. I'm not sure I even put that in my notes, but you want to do that in a neutral area like this, okay? You don't want to introduce 2 birds together in, let's say, your bird's territory. If your bird comes into a playroom and you play with it there, that's one thing, but if it's near its cage or in the room where the bird's cage is, you may be dealing with territorial issues and you don't want to add that to it, okay? So get him in a neutral area, which is what I did with Snowball. The hardest part with him is getting him off the cage, because he just had this thing about latching on to cages. He'll still do it sometimes. And I just pat him and tell him I love him, and then slowly work one foot loose. And once I've got one foot loose, he comes right to me. And it's not so much that he doesn't want to come to me, it's more that he wants to stay where he is now. Then he'll hang on. And sometimes he'll hang on just because he wants to get petted. He didn't really show much aggression to any other birds. He didn't show, and that aggression is usually territoriality, where they establish a territory and they don't want anybody else in it. He didn't show that. He developed that in time when he was in his relationship with Chloe. And mate aggression is a fairly common thing. You know what you're doing on the floor? Come on back up here. What you want to do on the floor. Now Coco was like Lucy. She would chase away, and Lucy's getting much better about this. And the aviaries helped a lot with that too. But Coco would shove any other bird away from her, or run away and try to get back in her cage around other birds. She didn't like being around other birds. And over time, working with her, again, introducing her in a neutral area to another bird while 2 birds are playing. You can have more than that in the room if you know you can handle it and you're prepared to handle it. I'll give you an example. I was up at the Lily Sanctuary before I actually started all this, and 2 Amazons got into it. And I saw 2 two people, one of the directors and one of the volunteers, they both dove in and put their hands between the birds. Now, Amazons are a little more likely to bite, okay? They weren't concerned at all about being bitten. All they were concerned about is that the birds did not actually hurt each other. And as long as you feel that way and you don't care if you get bit, then it's going to be fine. If you have a problem with, well, I don't want to be bit, well, you know, birds are probably not the best thing for you in that situation.
It is ignorance of Bob's nature that turned Babaloo into a living gargoyle. Bob's would-be parents made a hasty choice and found themselves in living hell, torn between guilt and frustration. I have seen the joy in Babaloo's eyes now that he has a new life with me as his companion. To see Babaloo love and trust again is worth the effort of a lifetime. But, once again, Bob is heading toward the pain of separation. My heart nearly broke the day I discovered that he was heading toward a cloacal prolapse, that his life will be cut short. To find love and acceptance and then have it stolen away from you by failing health is too much to bear. We can slow the progress of his failing health, but we can't stop it. He will need several surgeries, and eventually, Babaloo will die. We want to give him the best possible life until that day. His surgeries will become progressively more expensive over time. Won't you please lend Babaloo a hand and donate to his medical fund today? Our donation button is on our webpage at www.chloesanctuary.org. Just be sure to say, "For Bob," in the notes when you donate.
And you're not worried about being bitten, that doesn't mean the next bird's going to be like that. So you have to be ready for it. So if you're a hemophiliac, again, birds are probably not the best thing for you, but... So Coco, she was demure, kind of hiding in the shadows, not wanting to get involved. As you can see, she's sitting up there now. She's tired from being in the aviary too. They're a little bit worn out from the aviary today, but I introduced her to other birds, and she started preening with Lorelei. Lorelai's our great preening teacher. And after a while, she started preening with Bob, and then she got to know everybody. And she's become, she is a force to be reckoned with. She is a strong personality. When she came here, she was, now watch it. I see that little bit of aggression, that little, like, this is my spot, don't get in it. You be nice to the Lorelei. And Bob, don't mess with her, you're not making it any easier. So, again, you can gently guide them like this. She's still fairly new to the flock, so I'll guide Bob away from her. I'll put my hands between the two of them, just gently to kind of give the idea that let's not get into anything. I'll say don't fight, or be calm, that kind of thing. Oh, you want to preen? These two were preening earlier. I'm going to be careful. You can't touch this one too much. She'll start vibrating. Right, Lorelei? Hey, Pip, Pip, Pip. And it's good if you get used to being able to handle their beaks. You want to do that with the new bird. You watch where you put your face there, Bob. You can play with the wood, but I don't want you playing with anybody's rears, okay? He's got a bad habit of that. So you get to where you can handle their beaks, so if something goes awry, you can reach over and just grab that upper mandible and calm them down. And she's calm about it. It doesn't bother her if I touch her beak. You want to be able to do that. It helps greatly. So Coco started out nervous, kind of staying away from the other birds. Now she's pretty much take charge. Nobody messes with Coco. No, he's not for long, because she'll defend her own territory and she'll defend what she's doing. If she's busy doing something and someone tries to bother her, she'll push them away in a strong way. She won't hurt them, but she'll push them away. So, part of the whole thing is having the confidence that you can handle a situation. It would be different if you had them in a room and they were not being watched, but I never suggest that you have multiple birds out in a room alone. And one guy had Bob in a room, just left him in his office. He was back an hour later and everything's torn up. Well, of course. So you don't leave them alone, especially not a new bird. So there's 3 examples. Started out calm. She unpacked her baggage, okay? She started to establish her own little territory. And before long, she became a strong personality, okay? If you work with them, they'll all do that. Pippa was pretty tentative when she came here. She's got a strong personality now, don't you? She asks for what she wants. She goes and does what she wants, and she doesn't really cause much trouble. In the beginning, you saw her. She'd fly onto old Steve Jobs' head over there. She'd get into fights with everybody. This is going to happen. And you may have a bird that does that. It's your reactions. Now, let's not fight. Again, you see what I said? I said you have to be not worried about being bitten. I've got my fingers right where they want to bite something, they can bite my hands, okay? My fingers, where all those nerves are, I'm putting them right there. This is the only real problem I have right now is these 2. And it's because Bob wants to be closer to her than she wants him to be. She doesn't have a problem with him sitting there, but she doesn't want, it appears that she doesn't want him coming into her space. So, I know, and you can watch their eyes. You can see, and if you pay attention, you can see where a cockatoo is looking. I know their eyes are dark, and most people can't tell that, but if you get used to it, if you start watching them, you can tell what they're looking at. Right now she's looking at Bob. Now she's looking back over at Lorelei. Now she's looking over at Peaches in this area, okay? And then of course she's looking this way too. They look both ways at the same time. So you need to calm down, leave her alone. She doesn't want to play with you. Maybe someday, Bob. I'm not sure that's the best thing, but maybe someday. Bob, you be nice, and you leave her alone. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. So that's 3 little examples, and they're going to go through changes. We'll go through all that. First thing to remember, you'll see it on the internet. People will call their birds fids, as in feathered kids. That's not right. These are not children. They are not children. They don't act like children. What they act like is autistic birds. Birds that were raised, missing steps in their development, that don't really know what they are. Okay, they're not kids. And if you think they are, pick up a 1-year-old and take a good whiff. And pick up a bird and take a good whiff. Tell me which smells better. They don't smell like children. They don't act like children. They don't have the same reactions. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is because this is Bob's little spot, I'm going to move this bird a little farther from Bob, put her up on my chest, and I'm going to try to redirect Bob's head down by just putting my arm on his head. Get him off of bothering her, because she's not happy about it, are you? No issues with the other birds in the room, just Bob. Another thing too is if you think that they're similar to children, I'll just give you an example. We have red blood cells. Our red blood cells don't have a nucleus, okay? No nucleus. Their red blood cells do. We have 7 layers to our skin. They have 3 layers. So that's just some physical differences. There's a lot more than that. Behaviorally, we're worlds apart, okay? Where people get confused and relate these guys to children, it's a feature of the human mind called cognitive bias, okay? Yeah, you're driving down the street, you get cut off, and it's a woman that cuts you off, okay? So the next time you're driving down the street, another woman cuts you off. And then a little bit later, another woman cuts you off. So you start going, oh, women are very terrible drivers. And then a man cuts you off, and you don't even really notice. It's like, ah. Then the next woman that cuts you off, see, there's another bad driver. So what you're doing is you're, Bob, leave her alone. No, you stop that. So what you're doing is you're picking out just the incidents where women are cutting you off. And what you've done is you've set up this bias in your mind that that's the way it is. So people do that with these guys because some of the things they do seem to be like what a child would do. Sometimes they're, like a child will say, give me the toy, give me the toy, give me the toy, I want that. So we relate to it. They're not doing that. They're not saying, give me this that way. They're just looking for that reward that they want in their environment. They're looking for that consequence, and they're trying to get it. Bob, don't pull the hair on my arm. Stop it. He's trying to bother me by pulling the hair on my arm so he can get to her. You're going to stop that, or you're going to go back to your cage, okay? He pulls the hairs out, so it's irritating. Don't you, Bob? Cut it out now. Pippa, why don't you sit? Oh, Pippa. Right down here. Come on. You leave her alone. Sit right there, Pippa. No, don't bother Lorelei. There you go, little girl. Sorry, Pippa, I hated to move you, but he won't stop bothering me, and he's bothering you, so... He's better in the room, but he's still a bit of a problem, so... So, cognitive bias, the definition. It's the tendency... That's right. It's the tendency to search for, interpret, focus on, and remember information in a way that confirms one's own perceptions. So again, the tendency to search for, interpret, focus on, and remember information in a way that confirms one's preconceptions. So they do something that looks like a child would do it, or something we've seen a child do, and we think, oh, that's a feathered child. No, it's not. It's an avian. It's a different line of evolution completely, and they are literally dinosaurs, okay? Okay, they're the last of the living dinosaurs, so birds are. So they're not like us. So if you think of them as children, you're going to be out of your depth when you're dealing with them, especially if you're dealing with them. Hi, baby, that was a beautiful song. Do you have a second verse? Do you have a second verse? Beautiful song. Beautiful song. It's a beautiful. It's a beautiful song. Leave my trackpad alone. Thank you. So if you think of them as children, you're going to be out of your depth, especially when you're dealing with a new member of your flock. So you need to learn to see their behavior for what it is, and that's the heart of the science that I use, applied behavior analysis, is seeing them for what they are. So that first video that we have on labels will help you to get out of that habit of labeling their behavior. Seeing them as children, that kind of thing. It's not going to help you. It's going to hinder you in the long run. Now, there are some questionable reasons to adopt a parrot. Polly seems lonely. So you want to give her a male companion. No, you don't. You don't want to deal with male bonding. You don't want to have them in the same cage, because if the male rejects her, the male could kill the female. Some females in the old world parrots. Yes, beautiful girl. Lorelei, poor baby. This poor thing. You're just like a washing machine on spin cycle, you poor thing. Lorelei. Poor girl. Yeah, she really needs that implant. Even if you keep them in separate cages, if they get too close together, you'll find that once they become bonded, I remember a guy who tried that. He said he thought that his bird needed a companion, so he went out and got a male for her. And then he got rid of both of them because they weren't paying any attention to him. Well, what do you expect? Once they become mated together, there's not going to be any real interest in anything outside that relationship. That is kind of similar to humans, isn't it? Except that humans don't really, at least not in our society, here in the United States, don't really have mate bonding for life. It's more like mate bonding until until I feel like I want something else. But that's not the way it works for them. So, besides, if you think you know what Polly would find sexy in a mate, then you're dreaming, okay? Your crystal balls and your tarot cards won't answer those questions. Now, some of that may just be the feather condition that you can't see. Remember, they can see into the ultraviolet, so they can look at a potential mate's feathers, and if they don't come up to snuff, they won't show any interest. So Polly seems lonely. I want to get her a female companion. You never know how they're going to react, and if you don't realize it and your bird is mated to you and you bring in another bird, that can cause all kinds of aggressive behavior. And it could even mean that you're going to get bitten. Because the bird that you have now, if it's mated to you, may bite you to say get rid of this other bird or get away from this other bird. Adopting a bird so that your bird won't be lonely is not a good reason to get another bird. Now, it's true that parrots do better in flocks, but then you have to know how to manage it, because these guys, especially cockatoos, they can't form a flock. So to get them to work together and live together, and like this one, I'm stopping her from eating my clothing. That's why my hand is down here, because otherwise she will pull the threads out of my clothes and they'll fall apart. Or she'll break the zipper, or she'll find something else to do to them. It's just the way she is, isn't it, Lorelei? But they do better in flocks, but you're going to have a ragtag flock that's going to have some unusual rules to it. It isn't going to be like what they have in the wild. So you're going to have to introduce this new bird to every bird. And you're going to have the same commitment to the new bird that you do to the birds you already have. This is a tough one for people, because they tend to get attached to the birds they have, and then if a new bird comes in and it has behavior that you're worried the bird you already have could get injured, sorry, you did this, now you have to work it out. So if you have the tools of reward training, or in more depth, applied behavior analysis behind you, you pick up a book like Animal Behavior 101 by Sellex, and the Manual of Parrot Behavior, so you can get an idea of what's going on inside their psychology. Tremendous book. And you work with that stuff, you're going to be able to deal with these guys in ways that will help them to enjoy the other birds in the flock. Bob, if you pull the hair on my arm one more time, I'm going to tickle you like this. Not that he cares. The absolute worst reason to get another bird is your son, your daughter wants a, oh mom, I want an umbrella cockatoo. Oh mom, I want an Amazon. Oh, you're a minor. When you turn 18, you can buy anything you want, but you're not going to get an animal that lives 80 years that has roughly the same intelligence as a monkey. I'm not doing that. These guys live a long time. The child's going to go through adolescence, is going to be running off after, its own mate, which it will probably have 4 or 5 in its lifetime if it lives in the United States. It's not going to care for that bird after a certain amount of time. So you don't want to do that, okay? Bad reasons. And adolescents don't generally show a responsibility. I know there are a few exceptions, but believe me, all parents think their kids are exceptional until they turn 14 or 15. Now, captive parrots, they miss many steps in their development because the eggs are taken away from the mother right after they're laid, and then they're raised in an incubator, and humans raise them. It's like taking a human child, ripping it out of the uterus, and then letting, once the child has grown in an incubator, you let chimpanzees raise it. That's not going to be a normal child. So they're either functionally autistic or psychotic. And if you get really lucky, you might get a bird that's just neurotic. I guess that's true of humans too, but if you compare their behavior in captivity with the birds that you can see in videos from down in Australia, for example, you'll see that they're just nuts, okay? Because they just didn't get what they needed. Hi, Bob. They didn't get what they needed to be a fully rounded individual. Lorelei, please don't eat my clothing. Please. I guess it's better than vibrating, but... Now, things you need to do, or you should do, if you choose to expand your flock, at least study the basics of behavior shaping and the psychology of the species. So, Animal Training 101, it's not an easy book, but it's an actual book about training animals by a professional. And she's trained dolphins and killer whales and bears and parrots and, you name it. And so that's a great place to start. It's not watered down, though. Our training videos are another good place. And to understand their psychology, the Manual of Parrot Behavior by Lucier, and I really recommend it. I did that study before I brought in Lorelei, and I still had a lot to know. She was the first addition to my flock, right? To Chloe's flock, really. Next, you need to be sure that you are ready to work with whatever functional misbehaviors may arise. And I say functional misbehavior, it's functional. It serves a function in their life, okay? If Bob is pulling the hairs on my arm, it serves a function. He's trying to get my attention, okay? And he is. He's trying to direct me to do something different when he does that. So when I had Pippa down here, and he wanted to get to Pippa, he was pulling the hairs on my arm, and it's a way to get my attention off of Pippa so that he can go after her. Complicated game, but that's basically what he was doing. You have to be committed. You're not going to bring in a bird and say, oh, I've always wanted an umbrella cockatoo. Always wanted this kind of bird. This is my goal. You don't even know what an umbrella cockatoo is. You just like what they look like. That's not going to work. You may like what a koala looks like, but if you find out what a male koala is like in Australia, they'll jump out of the tree and rip your eyes out. I'm not kidding, okay? Now, these guys are not like that, but you need to understand what they're going to do and why. And if you don't, you're going to have some problems. So learn everything you can, and the Manual of Parrot Behavior is probably your best bet for that. Make sure your flock is fully vetted. Every bird's been tested, okay? You don't want to give the new bird any diseases. You also want to make sure that nothing is cropping up that's going to take a lot of your time when you bring in the new bird. You find out one of your birds is sick after you just brought in a new bird, that's going to be a problem for you, because now you've got your divided attention, and when you're dealing with a new bird, you're dealing with changing their diet, getting them over to the good diet, the diet that you're feeding them, the mash that you're making them, making sure that they're eating Harrison's pellets, they're eating the top of the line kind of food. All that takes time and effort, along with trying to get them to work together and to live together in some kind of ragtag flock. Be sure the new bird is fully vetted. Okay, like I was talking about with Pippa. She was vetted up north, and then they found that titer of chlamydia, and then they had to retest, and it didn't change, so she didn't have the disease, she'd just been exposed to it. Kind of like when you get exposed to the flu, you'll have, your bloodstream will have antibodies that say, hey, I've been exposed to this virus. That's a titer, okay? Do a quality of life on each bird in your flock. You know, and the Manual of Parrot Behavior does have the quality of life forms. Make duplicates, fill them out. Make sure your bird, whatever issues it has, you know them. Observe your bird. Does it show any territoriality? Is it showing mating behavior with you? This is why you need to know this stuff, because if it's mated to you and you bring a new bird in, you're in trouble, okay? And it's not the new bird's fault, okay? So you need to know your bird's, if it's territorial, if it doesn't like things around its cage, or if it's protecting you, if it has some particular quirks, okay, it likes to be fed at a particular time at night, and hi, baby, you got another part to that? You got another verse? You got another verse, baby? That's a beautiful song. No, we're not doing that. You silly thing. You're so silly. Babadook. Lorelei. This is why she needs an implant, see? Because her mating behavior is completely out of control. No, you're not going to go over there and take that either. Come here. Now he's trying to get to my trackpad. No. I'm not going to let you do that. That's sneaky, and you're not going to get away with it. Get on your side. So if you have a bird that likes to have a certain treat, sits with you at a certain time, you bring in a new bird, and suddenly you're pushing them out of that, you're going to create a problem. Okay? So you have to map out this particular time, my bird likes this and gets this and expects this, so the new bird can't be involved with that. Now later on, it's possible you can bring the bird into those situations a little bit, but you don't want to do it in the beginning. Okay? Give it a few months. Think in terms of months, not days, okay? Don't think I'm going to bring in a bird and, in a week it's all going to be, skating down Success City. No, it's not going to work that way. And it takes a few weeks for a bird to bring out its negative traits anyway, and the behaviors that it normally uses when it's trying to adjust to a new environment. And with your birds, get them into training mode, okay? Make sure you have a treat that they don't get at any other time except when you're training them, okay? You'll see that in our training videos. Make sure that they know targeting. See, one thing you should teach them is targeting. And that's really simple. They're going to follow your hand. Why don't you sit over here? They're going to follow your hand for food. So targeting is just, here's a piece of food, they go get it. Here's a piece of food, they go get it. So they learn to follow your hand. Then if you're in a situation where you're working with two birds, a new bird, you have, let's say, Bob, who happens to like, he likes peanut butter. So it would be better if you like sunflower seeds or something, but if I'll just use the example, I have a sunflower seed. So if they start to get into a tay-to-tay, I can actually target him with sunflower seeds to break that out. And then, of course, you're going to do the same thing with a new bird. When it comes in, you're going to start getting them into training mode. You're going to teach them to target what you have in your hand. And eventually you'll be teaching them step up and that kind of thing, but get them to follow your hand, because then you can move them where you need to. And then you can start, when you do that, you can say good bird. And like if I need to put him somewhere else, I can say good bird because I got him to go there. Or if I need to change his behavior, I can say good bird. Then he knows that that's a reward, okay? It's complicated. See, there's a whole methodology to how you do this, but these are the general things that you're going to need to do. So you've mapped out the environment, you know what your bird likes, where it likes it, what time it likes it at, so that you won't be stepping over that. You know the times that your bird is kind of relaxing, hanging out in its cage, or just sitting on a perch and taking it easy like these ones are. That's a good time to break them into learning about, that's a good time to socialize them with a new bird. Mapping out the future will help you deal with it, okay? Don't fly by the seat of your pants, especially if you've got Lorelei around, because she'll chew the bottoms out of your pants. So don't fly by the seat of your pants. Believe me, it doesn't work. You'll make mistakes. But if you think ahead of time, you won't. Okay, this is one thing I can do to break this, is just move her somewhere farther away. Would you leave my track pant? I'll put it on my pants because I can't seem to get you to leave it alone. So if you imagine situations and how you're going to handle them, okay? With aggression, with overstimulation like that. One thing I do is just move her in the aviary. I literally toss her and she flies all the way across the cage. She'll stop vibrating if I do that. But then she'll look at me like, well, I really want to come back, you know? And so then I have to use positive punishment, which is adding something to reduce or extinguish her behavior, which is I pull out the squirt gun. She doesn't like to get wet. I don't like doing that, but in there I don't have a heck of a lot of choice. I've got 4 or 5 birds sitting on me. I can't sit them all down and go and get her. It doesn't work. Or sit them all down and try to take Snowball and pick him up and put him somewhere else in the cage. Because it's her and Snowball that get into this behavior. So you want to play out all the different possible scenarios and different ways you're going to handle them. You know, I'll do this. Well, if that doesn't work, I'll do that. And then write them down. I'm going to do this, 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 this. Now, you may think I'm over planning this. But let me tell you, it saved my rear to plan these things out ahead of time. You may just try to go by the seat of your pants. Some people get away with it. But the thing is, you only get away with it for so long, because we get calls all the time. I get calls, people saying, well, my bird started screaming all the time and I just need to find another home for it. Well, they probably could have stopped it if they caught it early on and started using the techniques I'm talking about, okay? Reward training. As soon as the bird started screaming, if they ignore the screaming and then run over and gave them a treat, every time they started saying something, if your bird says hello and the bird says hello and they're screaming and says hello, the second you run over there and give them the treat because they said hello, right? You run right over and do that. While you're going good bird. Good bird is letting them know, it's a bridge, letting them know they're going to get a treat because they said the right thing. But what happens is these people just get to the point where I can't take this anymore because they don't know the basics of training. The basics aren't that hard to learn. There's a lot to it that will make it easier, but the basics of reward training are fairly easy. Like that, I don't watch television, but I saw this clip where this guy is giving chocolate to this woman. Every time she does something for him, it's like, oh, would you like a piece of chocolate? And finally his buddy hits him in the ribs and goes, hey, quit doing that. Because he was positively reinforcing behavior. Believe me, it works. And also, it's a very good flap, Meander. Good boy. That's a good boy. Well, it is, isn't it, sugar? It is. He's a good bird. So, figure out what you're going to do for timeouts. Usually it's a perch in a corner, somewhere where there isn't anything to really do, just a plain perch, like something like this, stuck in the corner. You're going to put them over there for 2 minutes. 2 minutes is about the most you want to do for a timeout. Be careful putting them back in their cage, because sometimes that's what they want. So you'll get bad behavior, functional misbehavior, right? You'll get that behavior if they want to go to their cage, and they do something and you put them in it, you're going to train that behavior in. So be careful there. Know your limits. Know how you're going to react to bites, know how you're going to react to screaming, and know how you're going to react to other misbehavior like chewing your clothing, chewing the couch, chewing the drapes, how you're going to react, how you're going to train that behavior out, okay? Be willing to give equal weight to each bird's needs. Equal weight to each bird's needs. Don't play favorites. If you grew up in a household with more than one child, the odds are, hey, no. Thank you, Pippa. Good girl. Good girl. Yes, a good girl, Pippa. You listen. You've gotten awfully good about listening, haven't you, girl? Bob, I'm trying to turn the timer off, you big silly. Thank you. I have a timer so I know I don't run the cameras to where they shut off automatically. If you're in a big family, you probably had there was that special child that got the extra stuff. You don't want to do that. They should all be treated equally. Now that doesn't mean they all get the same thing. I mean, obviously Lorelei has her favorite treats. Okay, her favorite thing is pine nuts. I'm not going to be giving her papaya. It doesn't mean you give them the same thing. You give them what they need equally, whatever the need is. Well, come on over. Come on over. Now you leave her alone. You leave her alone. Remember that that each bird is going to bring its baggage. You want to sit up here? You can. I have to fight Bob, but you can sit up here if you want. There you go. They're going to bring their baggage. They're going to stop at Bob. They're going to let that baggage out. Okay? And they're going to unpack it after a few weeks, and then some behaviors that they used to do are going to come back. You won't know about them. All of a sudden, you're going to see a bird who's strobing their cage bars back and forth. They weren't doing that before. Maybe this is a behavior they've had before. You deal with it when it pops up. Have your help desk ready. Books, videos, vets, and if you can, a behaviorist. Don't rely on other bird people on the internet, okay? Most of them are well-meaning, but they're not trained. You wouldn't let a well-meaning person go into the nuclear plant close to your home and take over operations if they weren't qualified, would you? I mean, not if you cared about living. And it's the same with your birds. I'll give you a quick example. I heard one woman telling another lady to... That's right, Pippa. Salamander, where are you? Salamander. Salamander. Oh, there you are. Hi, right in front of me. Hi, Sal. Come on over. Come on over, Sal. Come on. There's a salamander. No! You're not going to bother her. Go over here. Stop it. Okay. And if you can't honestly say that you will always have both birds' best interests at heart for the new bird and the other birds that you have, you will have all their interests at heart, maybe you should wait. Learn more. Get some skills, okay? Because if you bring in a bird and you decide you can't handle it, these birds get... See, if you bring in a bird, you decide you can't handle it, that you didn't have the skills you needed to do this, and you give up, these guys take that really hard, okay? They take it personally. And, you know, they start to get bonded with you, and then you reject them. It can make it difficult for them to go on in life and just make it get harder and harder until finally they get euthanized. And you don't want to be part of that. But on the other side of it, if you think you can and you're willing to put in the time and effort to learn about these guys and make them fit into your flock, we need people out there who are willing to help these guys. They need homes. We need to stop the breeding. We need to get these breeders shut down because these guys don't belong in captivity. But until then, we have them. They live a long time. They're going to be around. You want birds? There's plenty of them, okay? But don't take them from breeders. Don't take them from breeders. Get them from rescues because they need help. And they're stuck here. There's plenty for us. There's plenty for your kids when they grow up. But we need to stop the breeding. So you want to say goodbye, Pippa? Want to say goodbye to the people? Do you want to say goodbye to the people? You do? Well, say goodbye to the people. Pippa, say goodbye to people. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. We welcome your feedback on our videos. We look forward to your insights, tips, questions, stories, and pictures. You can email us at
Cockatude at chloesanctuary.org. Reach us on Twitter @Chloe Sanctuary. And join with us on our Facebook Chloe Sanctuary page.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.